everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Kat. I'm a wife, a homeschool mom, and an avid reader. For everyone else, welcome back. My husband is amazing, first off. He got a 3D printer years ago and enjoyed printing with it, but recently he got a new 3D printer that works so much faster. And even more recently, he got an AMS machine, which allows him to change colors without him having to do anything during the print. And because of all of that, he has spoiled me rotten, especially in way of my bookshelves. So I wanted to show you some of the things that he has printed for me and redo my bookshelves. When you see some of the things, you might understand better why. But let's go back to the first printer. He had an Ender 3, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And it was a great one to start with. It was the right price point for us, and we got a lot of use out of it. Some of the things he printed, especially then, were more to fit my nerdy side. And so I have things like the Doctor Who box. This has coordinates on it. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, there it goes. If I turn it just right, you can see it's got coordinates written on it that lead the Doctor to where River was. Now, this one, like I said, was printed on the old machine. And so there are some parts in it that the print didn't do perfectly, but we were just excited to be able to print some of these nerdy things for a fraction of the cost of us buying it. So this was one of the first prints he did for me. And he also did one did a sign for Firefly. This one lived in my living room for a long time. It needs a good dusting, but now lives up on top of my bookshelves. And when he did that one, he also did one that was a Doctor Who quote, "We're all stories in the end. Just make it a good one, eh?" This one he printed in black and then painted the front white just so it stood out more, especially if it's among books. That white printing that white painting stood out a little more. It now sits on a top shelf all by itself and not blocking books at all because I worry about knocking it down. Another bookish nerdy thing he printed, he started with this one. This is the spear from Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, The Way of Kings. It's the first book in that series. This one kept breaking though. It broke all here and here. We've over time glued it, but it does keep coming apart on us. And so he had printed me another one. And this one in a gold. It really stands out a lot better on my bookshelf than the silver one did. And I love it. It's so fun. It's such a quirky thing to have. Now, recently, the silver one broke again. And on the new machine, my husband made me a new one. Now, I seriously doubt that the computer or the camera will pick up differences, but the print for this black one is a whole lot better than the print from the old machine. And some of that, yes, maybe user error, but also the difference in the machines. The Ender 3 was a lower price point than our current one, which I believe is a bamboo. I have no idea what that means. But I believe it's the bamboo brand. But this one's a lot sturdier. I don't have to worry about it breaking here at the different, or where the filament gets thinner, because the machine just does a little bit better. One last nerdy print from the old printer that my husband printed for me is Howl's Moving Castle. Not only did he print Howl's Moving Castle, but he also printed a calcifer for me, where calcifer is hanging on the ember, or hanging on to the last bit of the stick. And there is also the pan that I'm trying to set the castle down without breaking it, that he rests on. Again, this one was done with the old printer, and we had a few problems with things like the little hand printing, and once upon a time there was a handle on this, but it did not print well and broke. But those are some of the really cool nerdy things. This one, like I said, the Howl's Moving Castle, it really, even for the old machine, the detail in it is just amazing. You have all the different parts on the castle, and my chicken legs over time have broken off. They're very thin, as you can see, for the weight of the whole castle. So I do have it propped up on the top shelf in a way that it doesn't fall. But I absolutely love my Howl's Castle. We've talked about possibly printing a new one on the new machine, but it's not a huge priority right now because we have so much more that we want to print. And one other that I missed from the old printer is this cat. It tends to fall down off my shelf, but if you look, I have like strings that have started to come apart, and this is where the Ender, because of it being newer technology at the time, it had a little bit harder of a time with keeping the filament in place in a way that it wouldn't kind of break apart if everything wasn't exactly right. We worked out some of those kinks even when we had the Ender, by doing things like buying a tent for it, to keep the temperature a little more constant. But a lot of fun things can be printed. And that brings me to some of the newer prints that were made especially for my bookshelves, that my husband did once he got the AMS. Then again, that just allows it to automatically change seamlessly between colors. The first thing he printed me was this TARDIS, and all of this printed all at the same time. Unlike with the other machine, it would either have to be all one color and you paint it, or there were ways that you could manipulate it so it would pause and you could add the parts, but it takes precise, you really have to pay attention to those. So the first thing he did print me with the new AMS was the TARDIS. And then we started really just having fun with it and putting our printer through its paces, as it were. A few other things that he's printed is he printed me this 4 set of little tent signs. So we have books and coffee and go away, I'm reading. And then we have just one more chapter and live, love, read. I've had these, if you look back on some of my other videos, they've been spread out on the shelves, just as little fun looky-loos. But the parts that I'm really excited about and that I hope will be a little more prominent is my books read for the year. I've pointed it out in a few videos, but it has these tiles that just hook on and you can change it as you go, and all the numbers that go with it. And I love with the hooks, with the holes, I have these hooks that it just easily hangs and can be there for my videos so that you can see where I'm at in my reading. And then another thing that my husband printed specifically to help me with doing videos is this stand. This is a stand, and you may have seen it in some of my other videos as well, that allows me to attach it to the bookcase, and then I can take any book and rest it there so that you can see it without me having to hold it. And so this has been something that I am using a little bit more frequently as I'm going through. Now we're at the part of what has led me to want to redo my shelves again. My husband found these really cool, doorpost, fantasy doorpost type signs that have the different genres on them. So I have a mystery. I have historical fiction. Romance. Fantasy. Sci-fi. Horror. And then I asked him to print me 2 of this one, and it just says smut on it. And this way I can separate my fantasy and my science fiction out as ones that are okay for my 15-year-old to read and ones that are not okay for a 15-year-old to read. And then the last one I have is to be read. Now, I'm not quite sure if this one's going to end up on my shelves because with most of these on the shelf I have read, and I am out of room on my bookshelves. So I might have to do a little finagling to get things situated in a way that I can display more books around my room, using up some of the shelves that take up or they're taken up by things like candles and booktube supplies. But I'm going to jump into removing all the books from the shelf, removing all the trinkets, and starting to set up or divide the books up among their genres and figuring out how I'm going to reset my shelves. So feel free to hang around and watch, or if you would rather, skip ahead to the end and see the final product. I'll see you on the other end. Alright, so currently I have sci-fi, horror. I'm not sure if I'm going to put those under horror or mystery thriller. Mystery, historical fiction, to be read. All of this is fantasy. All of those there, I am debating on putting them in historical fiction or in fantasy. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to put Allegiant and those books in sci-fi. And then this over here is romance. And then I have Sanderson, which I'm thinking I'm going to keep all of Sanderson together. So, let's start plotting out. The shelves are all set up now. So we have fantasy with the tag, and it comes here and then down and across with my books read count, and continues even more and more and more, and then we come up finish regular fantasy, and then I have my fantasy smut. Basically, these are the books that my daughter is not allowed to read yet. So then I have those, just over a shelf of those. Not too many limited by her, or to her. Then historical fantasy. So I have another couple of shelves of that, and then down here is my romance tag, along with the romance books. I did end up stacking these in this bottom shelf going the other way because I could fit more on there, and then my other shelf, I have all my Sanderson here with no tag, but then here is my sci-fi. These here are my sci-fi comic books and a cookbook, and coloring book even. Sci-fi going through and continuing down on this shelf, and then we have the mystery, continue, all right, and then here these ones don't have a tag in this first set because these are contemporaries. They don't really fit in any of the others, but then we come back into a tag of horror and my few horror books here, and then we have my to be read cart. I'm not going to be able to show off much of this one because to actually pull, I'd have to actually pull it out, and it is nice and snug in there right now, but there are 3 full racks on there of books that I want to read one day. And there you have it, my 3D prints that my husband did for me, along with all of my bookshelves. One thing I did realize once I started is I missed one of the cool 3D prints that my husband printed, and that was this I'm not addicted to reading. I can stop as soon as I finish this next chapter. This is a great tool because I can use it to make sure all my books are the same distance from the front of the bookshelf. It's just got the lip, and it fits right on there. Very easy, very great, and worked really well for that. And then he also printed me another Brandon Sanderson thing. This is for the Mistborn series. These are all the medals, and they're push and pull. So I have to figure out where I'm gonna put this on that shelf because it's getting pretty full. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and just even if you got some cool ideas of things that you could use with a 3D printer to print for your bookshelves, or other nerdy things. And I will see you next time. Bye.